Andrea Palladio's 4 books of architecture did not appear in English until the 18th century, at least in English in full. And the first edition was published by an Italian, Giacomo Leoni, who published the 4 books between 1715 and 1720. He produced lavish folio volumes which were intended for a gentleman's library, not for workmen or craftsmen who could use the designs in a practical capacity. The privilege of producing that kind of work fell to an unscrupulous engraver called Benjamin Cole, with the assistance of Edward Hoppus, who was a surveyor working in the City of London. What Cole did was to take the plates of Leoni's folio edition, reduce them in size, copying them, but copying them as mirror images. So he made a plate that matched Leoni's, which meant that once it was printed in reverse. He also padded out the work with engravings which he copied from other architects, and in particular from Isaac Ware's Some Designs of Inigo Jones, which was published in 1731. What Hoppus did was who had a problem with the copyright, was to take Leoni's English text and effectively rewrite it so that it looked slightly different. At that stage, there was no copyright resting in an artist's output, but because Isaac Ware, whose work had been stolen by Cole, was a protégé of Lord Burlington, who was the great promoter of Palladianism in England in the early 18th century, Burlington used his position as a member of the House of Lords to get through an act which awarded for the first time copyright in an artist's work, so that Cole's unscrupulous borrowings would not be allowed in future. As I said, the translation produced by Leoni was intended for a gentleman and not for use by workmen. Because this smaller format could be bought by bricklayers, plasterers, carpenters, joiners, and so forth, relatively few copies of it survive compared to the Leoni edition. It was obvious that the copies stayed on a craftsman's workbench and were just used until eventually they fell apart. The mixture of additional drawings, such as chimney pieces put into, for example, a section on roofs in Palladio's text, was a way of enabling, inadvertently perhaps, since Cole was simply making a commercial decision, but it had the inadvertent effect of adding material to the repertoire that craftsmen could use when they were working on a building, a house or whatever, and it assisted in the spread of Palladianism throughout the country and to buildings of a much less grand scale than Palladio was often working on.